welcome guys to the Interleaks podcast. Today I'm very excited. We have a first guest, an incredible person, but more than that, a very dear friend of mine. So introducing Eduardo Hernandez.
Thank you so much, Francesco, for that wonderful introduction. And thanks for having me here as well. I look forward to having a great conversation with you and also give some good advice and motivation to our audience and provide them some, assistance in their journey.
Perfect. So Eduardo, you are national city champion of Spanish rap battles, sponsored by Red Bull. You're also a recipient of the Jack Kent Scholarship, by the way, which is the number one scholarship in the country. You work at Google, and recently you got awarded by the government as the most outstanding Salvadorian abroad. So all of this is amazing, but let's go back all the way to the beginning. So tell me about your beginnings.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much again for highlighting all those achievements. Um, so I was born and raised in El Salvador in Central America. I moved to the U.S. when I was 18. That was 7 years ago. I was honestly very limited when I came to this country in terms of my my financial resources, my English skills, and also my STEM skills. So it all started with the motivation of wanting to make the difference because where I grew up, well, in my community in El Salvador, we always wanted to make the difference where we were because we knew that the country was going through some difficult times. We were going through, the gang battle violence. Fortunately, today it's a lot better, but back then it wasn't. So we always wanted to, make the difference, stand out, be different, be successful, and not have the same, fate. Have a different, pursue a different path, and just be a motivation to everybody else. So it all starts there with a desire to make a difference within the community.
Yeah, and going back to El Salvador, I know at that time El Salvador was going through a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of crime and violence. And you told me a bit about how like there was a stigma, especially because you were doing Spanish rap battles at a time, about being from gangs and stuff like that. So can you tell me more about that stereotype that they had on you back in El Salvador?
Yeah, so Salvadorian culture is very conservative. So a lot of movements, a lot of genres, and a lot of activities are directly associated to either crimes or gangs or not unproductive activity, and freestyle happens to be one of them. So when I started to do freestyle rap back in 2014, 2015, roughly, I was a lot of people came at me and were like, okay, so you're doing something that is associated with gangs, so you're not being productive, you're involved in this, you're probably even part of them, or either you are or you will be. But I saw the actual impact that this discipline could do on young people. So that's one thing that really made the difference, like the impact that this art had in our society, and that's one thing that was very important. The fact that I was being so different that everybody thought doing this would make that more likely. But I saw, like, I thought outside of the box, and I was like, no, this is not the way it works. The way it works is that if we keep doing this, then we can be productive. Then we can not be associated with them. We can become artists. We can develop our skills, and it actually helped me a lot to develop my communication skills, my public speaking, the way I build connections with others. So it was actually pretty good, pretty awesome.
Awesome. So now you're 18. You just moved to the United States. How was assimilating to a new country, to a new language? That's also when we actually met.
Yes.
So can you tell me a bit more about coming to the United States as an immigrant?
Yes. So I was 18. I already had the Salvadorian culture was already embedded on me.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a lot of adapting process because I wasn't too young. I see a lot of people who come, well, even you came a little bit younger, so you didn't really notice that gap. For me, it was like, okay, I'm an adult because I was honestly an adult, and but I still needed to finish my high school. So that was I feel like that was crucial here because that gave me a sense and that gave me a big you know slice of the culture, and that allowed me to immerse myself in the American culture. So coming here was a little bit of a shock, It was very annoying that I didn't really speak the language. Like 7 years ago, I couldn't really do this, and I had to go through the ESL program in my school. So I was more concerned on learning the language more than anything else. But I also wanted to do freestyle, so that's very important. That's one thing that allowed me not to lose my identity, because sometimes I wanted to say, okay, let me just focus on learning English and let me just become this, English speaker and this professional and just pursue my career. But at the same time, I'm like, no, but that's not who I am. I also want to pursue freestyle. I also want to do art, and that's all in Spanish. So let me keep this, and let me take both paths, and let me be an artist, and let me also be a professional. So
Amazing, amazing. And well, like going in that same lane, I know when you came to this country, we actually met.
yes,
And I think it would be great for like the audience to hear your story, especially of how when you manage when immigrants come to the United States, all of us come with needs. We're all in the struggle. We come with as little resources as possible, chasing the American dream.
yes,
And I know that's something that you went through, I went through, and what you did during when you were 18, when you came to freestyling, was something incredible. And so I would love for the people to know, and if you can share about how you were surviving at that time.
yeah. So it was very it was I always wanted to follow all I believed in, and at the time I believed my only at that time I believed freestyle was what was going to allow me to open all the doors. And like you said, and a fun fact about Francesco and myself is that when we met, we did a lot of work. I considered this my part-time job. I don't know about you. So my part-time job was to do freestyle rap on the 7 train in New York. So we would go on 7-hour journeys and get tips from the people, and with that we will be able to survive, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of I feel like my parents, a lot of people were visualizing this from the perspective that you're not being productive or you could be doing something else. But I always believed that what I was doing at the time was gonna bring the outcomes later in the future, and it ended up happening. So I ended up landing on a sponsorship with Red Bull, attending the most important freestyle competition in the world, and then when I had this settled down, it was more of a transition and being more like, okay, let me now pursue my professional career. Now that I know how it works, now that I've developed myself as an artist, now let me go to the professional part.
Exactly. So, like, as you see, like 7 years ago, we were freestyling in the subway train to survive, and now Eduardo works at Google. I own my own staffing agency. So life can really change if you can focus yourself. And you have to be a bit delusional as well, but also work your ass off, and then everything can change. Your life can really change. So that's something that I hold dear to my memories as well. I'm not sure if you also that's a memory that you keep it inside, especially as you look back and you're like, wow, I have achieved so much from back then. But yeah, so now you're going like a bit more with the rap battles. How was competing in Red Bull in front of like 200-300 people, and millions of people watching you?
Yes,
How's that experience? Yeah.
it's very interesting. It's honestly unreal. So it's like if you're in a cloud, it's like you go to outer space and you don't really know what's happening, because those experiences, they treat you as a superstar. Like you really feel like you're Eminem or you're like a pretty famous rapper. So when Red Bull takes you to their events, it's you don't really know what's going on. You just go with the flow. And when you perform, like when you're doing the mic check, like the day before the event or even a couple hours before the event, you see the stage, you see like a void in the place because there's no one. So that's the moment when people get more nervous. Like that's one thing this is a conversation we've had with a lot of battlers. How the moment of truth, we call it, it's when we're doing the mic check, because like you stand on the stage, you like see all the pictures, all the scenery, and then but then you don't see anyone, and you're like, in 2 hours this place is gonna blow up, this place is gonna be crowded. So that's the moment where you realize what's happening. But then when it actually happens, when you're like in front of the crowd and you have thousands of people yelling at you and rooting for you or rooting for your opponent, you you don't really know what's going on at that moment. You just go, and then like a week later, you start thinking about, oh my god, how did this all happen? It's very unreal.
No, that's great. That's great. And in terms of like the freestyling world, rap ballers, is any specific memory that you have in your mind, or someone famous that you met, something that you hold dear to yourself, and you're like, wow, like I cannot believe I went from freestyling in the trains to now competing for Red Bull and meeting these amazing people.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good question. So I met a lot of professional rap battlers that are pretty famous in what they do in rap battling in Latin America. But what I keep most is when I got invited to the United Nations in 2017 because they held an event for Central America, specifically for Salvador. So they invited me to perform some freestyle, and the ambassador was there, the president was there, so I actually had a chance to meet Nayib Bukele, and it was a pretty awesome experience. So that's when I said, "Look where the train took me."
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Who didn't know that a couple stops, the train would take you all the way to your home country and being with such important people from El Salvador. But now just going back, so basically you come to this country, you're in high school, you're doing the freestyling thing as well, you're doing good with the rap battlers. I know at this point of time, after you finish high school, you start actually working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So can you tell me more about how you went from finish your high school to McDonald's, all the way to now working at Google? What happened there
Yes.
in terms of your professional and education career?
Yes. So one important thing that I always keep in mind and I always tell people is that when you have those jobs, let's say fast food or construction or whatever your first job is, because there's always that first job.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important job in your life because it will develop your personality as much as any other job. So that's when you're getting ready to go to the out there and rise and shine. So when I worked at McDonald's back then, I wouldn't really realize it. I felt ashamed. I didn't really tell people what I was doing, and I felt like I was disappointing my family and myself because I was there. But then I realized I'm learning how to deal with customers. I'm learning how to I'm learning how to be more tolerant. I'm learning how to work in a fast-paced environment. I'm learning how to respect my superiors and knowing how to communicate with them and understanding more different perspectives. So that opened my mind in terms of how can I develop my personality so that when I step up and when I transition to my new job, I become better and I use the skills that I learned here. So there's always a takeaway from everything. And that's a very important lesson I have for everyone. Like there's always a takeaway, even from the simplest job, from doing the simplest thing in the world, there's always a takeaway.
Yeah.
And that's one big thing I took from McDonald's. At that moment, I'm like, okay, why am I just taking orders and serving food?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to move. I learned how to respect my managers.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things. And then I transitioned to community college and I started to be a tutor. You
Yeah.
know. So that's when I start building upon my experience. So now okay, I know how to deal with people and that happened at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So now I'm applying my tutoring skills. So now I became more good at explaining concepts, at breaking down things, making people understand what I'm telling, articulating, and I'm also connecting all this with the freestyle skills. So I'm just always realizing how everything that you do in life, you know, develops yourself and allows you to be better at what you do. If you know how to connect
Yeah.
all the dots, then that's how it'll happen. I started to connect all the dots. It's like when there's a movie and on the fourth movie you see something that relates to what happened in the first movie. So that's how I saw it. So I started connecting all the dots and it all made sense.
So sorry to cut you off a bit there.
No problem.
But in terms of like McDonald's, how long were you there working before you decide to apply to college, or what made you apply to college as well? Like what was like the timeline between there?
So I was there for 2 years. The first year, like the
Yeah.
first year and a half, I just worked there
Okay.
because I didn't really know how to navigate the educational system.
Yeah.
So I was there for a year and a half, and then I didn't really know where to go, and I actually, this is another interesting fact. First time I filled my application for a 4-year school, I applied to like 8. I got rejected to all of them. Actually, I applied to one school. Their acceptance rate is like 95%. So we used to make jokes like, at high school, and we used to be like, "Who could be that 5%? It's definitely not me." Well, it turns out I was that 5%, and I got rejected to all those. And then so I'm like, okay, no one took me. Let me go to community college, which is the place where they took me. And so I start doing community college, and then I start becoming more familiar with all the system and how the U.S. works in terms of education.
Yeah, so okay, amazing. So that's crazy, to be honest, and inspiring to see how someone can go from working at McDonald's to then getting to community college to now working at such prestige firms as Google. Like life can change in a couple of years if you really dedicate yourself to a craft and you actually put your head down and work. Because I have been friends with him since he got to this country,
Yes.
and I have seen the whole change, and we have seen the change together as well.
Yes, that's true. We both have seen how the other is, going up and up and up. So
Yeah.
the glow up that they call it, we've both seen it, and that's something that makes me very proud.
Yeah, and something that you told me the other day that I want to bring to the podcast was about how, especially in the Latino community, there is not that drive to change. Like you told me that the McDonald's story about how people that used to work with, they didn't improve in their lives. So can you
Yes.
expand a bit more on that concept? Because I think it's something very interesting and something that it is a bit harsh, but it's the reality of our community and our the people in our generation.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So when there's a story that I always tell people, and in a bad way, obviously. When I had this guy was my manager, I respected him, and he would always, I didn't really see how he didn't want to let us go. He wanted us to stay at McDonald's, so he wouldn't like the idea of the education and all that, and he believed staying there was enough. So fast forward 3 years ago, I had just transferred to Stevens Institute of Technology, which is where I'm currently at.
Mm-hmm.
I had earned the prestigious scholarship you mentioned,
Yeah.
and I went to have a meal at IHOP. So I went with my friends at my school, and I find this guy. I find this my previous manager, and now he was taking orders at IHOP. So I do this comparison like 6 years ago you were my manager at McDonald's. Now you're taking orders at IHOP. So I respect your process, but I haven't seen that development as a person, as a professional. I'm sorry, and that's something that I see a lot among Latinos. I have a lot of friends who came here 7 years ago, and they had better opportunities than me because they either knew English or they were younger because I was already 18. I was like pretty much on the line,
Yeah.
but they were like 15, 14, 13, and we at some point we shared jobs or we had similar jobs. Now 7 years after, I have this position at Google,
Mm-hmm.
and they are still working at the place that they used to when I met them.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to keep moving and keep improving, and it's very important to find a way to expose yourself to more places where you feel uncomfortable, so that you can become better at something that you're not, and then that's how you start building upon your experience.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think getting comfortable is the worst thing that can happen to a person. Getting comfortable is like killing yourself in a sense, because it is crazy how much you can improve in a couple of years. Uh, you can change your life completely if you really focus in a couple of years and put all of your focus and dedication into a craft. Your whole life can change. And and yeah, like I've seen Eduardo. He came from El Salvador with nothing, and it was crazy to see how in a couple of years he changed so much and his life overall improved in various ways. So I'm very proud of you, to be honest, more than a partner, more than as a friend. I feel proud of you. And
Mm.
another thing that I was gonna add was about the scholarship. So tell me, how do you go from community college to apply for the John Candace scholarship and then going to Stevens?
Yeah. So, and by the way, I also feel proud of you as a friend, like seeing your development and all things you've done. It's amazing. Just to do a little bit addition on what you were saying, just my philosophy and the way I see life is I'm constantly I'm constantly seeking for an opportunity to be bad at something that I want to be good. So it's like when I wanted to learn English, I knew I was bad at it, but I knew I was going to become good at some point with discipline. And then I'm like, okay, but why do I have to stay here? Let me become bad at something that I'm going to be good at some point. Let me go learn coding. So no, and now I go and start doing computer science. I know I'm very bad at this. I know I can't code, but I'm going to know how to code at some point. And that's a very important lesson. You can a lot of people don't really like to go through the process of being bad at something, and that's why they stay where they are. Mm-hmm. So at McDonald's, yes, I was good at taking orders, and I was bad at some points. But why do I have to why do I have to like limit myself to only be good at this if I can be good at something else? So now I'm good at software engineering, but AI is taking over. So AI is a lot of new concepts that I still don't fully understand. But why is there not a chance to not be good at AI? So let me go and try to do AI until I become good at this. Obviously, I'm not gonna like everything. There's been hobbies or activities that I just found out I didn't like. But I think that's the point in life. Constantly improving and evolving as a person. And now going back to the other question about the scholarship.
Yeah, scholarship. Right?
Yeah, so the Jack and Cook Scholarship is the #1 scholarship for community college and high school students in the U.S. It's basically a full ride to anywhere you want to go. It's not settled down to only one or certain schools. You can go wherever you want. So when I went to my community college, I didn't really know about this program, but I was already doing a lot of stuff. So like I said, let me start an activity which I know I can't really do, but I have the willingness to be able to do it. And I was tutoring. I was tutoring English. I was tutoring math. I was doing research for the computer science department. I was in the honors program. A lot of stuff that I was pretty new at. I didn't really know what was going on, but I was learning as I went. And so one professor at my school, which was very familiar with the scholarship, told me, "You listen, there's this program. I think you're a good fit for it. I want to be your mentor. Let's work on this. Let's take on this challenge. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I feel like it's worth to try." And that's another advice I have for you guys, and another takeaway from this podcast: the importance of having mentors and building connections. I feel like that's a crucial part in my life, where at the beginning in the US, let's say half of my journey, I was doing everything on my own, which I don't think it's totally bad, but I would have done things double faster if I had someone who already knew the path. So at community college, this is what happens. I realized the importance of aiming at people who are where I want to be and that I can talk to.
Yeah.
So I started talking to this professor, and now I have a mentor, and now I have another mentor from the English department, and now I have another mentor from the computer science department. And I start immersing myself in this environment of having a lot of mentors and a lot of people who would always give me advice on how to improve. And that's how it all happened. That's I feel the most important part of the process, when I surrounded myself by people that I consider my mentors, even my friends, and when I started to grow my network. And now I have a lot of people to rely on, people that know how to achieve those things because they already did it.
Amazing, amazing. That's great. And in terms of the application process, how was it for you? Like, what was your GPA? Because I know many probably students who are in high school or wanna transfer and apply for your scholarship.
Yeah.
Are probably interested in how was the process of applying. I know you use the freestyling thing to help you get it as well. So
yes,
maybe you can touch both things.
Yes. So this is a very good question. I really love it. So for scholarships and for college application, which for me they're the same. You're just aiming at a different kind of thing, but they're the same in terms of what they ask for and what they want. So for those type of application, you always follow like a standard path where you okay, let's write an essay, let's fill the extracurriculars, let's write a resume, and let's find someone who likes me and can write a recommendation, right? That's how it works. So this is basically how the scholarship works. You find a recommendation, you fill your resume, you have your extracurriculars, you write essays. But I also saw this as a way to think outside of the box because there's thousands of applicants who go to this scholarship,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, all these people are gonna do the same. They're all gonna fill a recommendation. They're all gonna have a pretty good resume. They're all gonna have strong essays. So what's up? What can I do so that I'm different from all these people? So that's when the thing came. That's when everything clicked. When I'm like, okay, let me do something that people are not gonna do. Let me share. Let me highlight who I am and how I use my talent to pursue my dreams. And that's when freestyle comes. So it's like, so people are talking in their essays about college, about their extracurriculars, about their leadership positions. But we have at least a hundred president of a club applying to this scholarship. But how many freestyle rappers do you have?
Exactly.
So that's one thing that I really suggest people. It's like discover your personality because there's only one like yourself in the world. There's only one Francesco. There's only one Eduardo. So the stuff that you guys have done, no one else has. So talk about that. Feel free to share your talents. You like to play guitar. You like to I don't know. You have a YouTube channel. Even if you only have one subscriber, you're a TikTok influencer. Talk about who you are because everybody is gonna follow the standard path.
So your essays were about freestyling,
Yes.
and did you, in terms of the interview process, when you were being interviewed by the scholarship itself, did you ever like freestyle in the interview or maybe like spoke about it?
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe told me after that a bit more about what was your reaction when they were like, hey Eduardo, you have the Jack Kent scholarship,
Yeah.
and you basically have a full right for any college you want. In a sense,
So yeah, so for the interview and all this, I get thinking about the same thing. Everybody here is gonna talk about their grades, and by the way, it's like their minimum GPA is 3.5. You can find the all the requirements on the Jack and Cook. You just type on Google Jack and Cook Foundation, and you'll see everything there. So, but I still thought about my competition and how yes, my GPA was very close to being perfect at the time,
yeah.
but still, I'm gonna have a lot of 4.0s here talking about their grades. So how can I stand out? And in the interview, I talked about freestyle. There was a section where they gave me like they put me on the spot and they'd be like, "Is there something you want the foundation to know?"
Yeah.
And yes, I want the foundation to know that I'm a freestyle rap artist.
Yeah.
That perform. That I travel the U.S. I perform on stages, and I try to keep people I try to keep this as a community thing where I want to make the difference and keep them out of the gang activity. So that makes you unique, and that was one thing that really stood out and made me a good candidate because there's not a lot of people like that. There's not a lot of people who share their unique talents, and then when they tell me that I'm a Cook scholar,
Yeah.
that was a very crazy week because I remember pretty well. It happened on Friday, so
Yeah.
everybody knew that was the week where the winners were going to be announced. So since Monday, I was having a dream of getting the scholarship, and I was always at my college,
Yeah.
and I was always getting it from a different person.
Yeah.
So one day someone told me, the other day the other person told me. So on Friday when they actually told me, it took me like an hour to really question if I was dreaming or not, and I didn't know if I was dreaming. So when I'm like, okay, yeah, this is real, I shocked, and it took me some time to process.
Oh, that's great to hear, man. I do remember you telling me that, so I was very happy for you and for what you have achieved. Okay, Eduardo. So you get a cookie scholarship. What college in specific do you choose after that?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of options, but I chose to come to Stevens Institute of Technology. I consider that they have a strong computer science program, and I also knew a lot of, well, I knew a couple people who had come here in the past, and now they were at positions that I wanted to be, and I'm currently at. So I took the inspiration on them, and I decided to come here to Stevens.
No, that's great. That's great. Going with that exact same thing, how was your experience first at Stevens, and then how did that allow you to get a job at Google?
So yeah, so my first semesters were a little bit hectic. It was a little bit hard because a lot of people here come with, a lot of resources, and they have been prepared their whole life to be here, and they have solid foundations. They have the contacts. They know the people. That wasn't my case. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have the programming experience. All I had was my community college experience, which was okay, but wasn't good enough at that time. So I'm always doing a double effort. That's how I see my journey here in the US. It's like in high school, I'm doing a double effort. I'm not only learning high school stuff, I'm learning English. In community college, I'm learning STEM as I'm learning how to navigate the system and how to get scholarships. And then at Stevens, I'm like, okay, I have everything I need. Turns out I don't. I still need to get good at coding and get good at, Stevens. Yeah. And so when I got adopted, I started talking to one of my CS professors, my computer science professors, and we became very close. So turns out by working with her, because I worked as a teaching assistant for her, so turns out we had this close relationship, and she was connected to Google. She leads some Google club here at Stevens, and she has a lot. She knows the people, right? She knows the people, and so she recommended me to apply for a scholarship program that they have. It's called the Generation Google Scholarship. That's how it all started. So I applied to this program. At this point, I already have the experience because as I'm reading the scholarship application, I noticed the same pattern.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I know how to approach this type of scholarships. I've been here before. Now I have the experience. I do the work. I write the essays. I think outside of the box. Turns out I get it. So I got the scholarship, and that opened me the doors. So that allowed me to meet people at Google. They give you, just by getting that scholarship, they give you certain benefits.
Oh.
I think the most important one is the network. So they have something called Google Students, which is actually like a branch of Google which supports students and allow them to work on projects. So based upon those projects, they give you another offers, and that's how it all happens.
Amazing. That's great. And how did it feel, after like looking back so many years, like getting your Google offer, and looking that you're gonna, get paid a six-figure job, get paid like a very high hourly rate, and then thinking back all the way to 2017 when you were freestyling in the subway trains, or 2016 back then.
It felt a little bit unreal. I think when everything happens, because in the past 7 years, a lot of things have happened to me, good things obviously, and I think in the moment I don't really know what to think. I don't understand what's happening. I don't think a lot about it. I just go with it, and then as with the time, I start to realize what's really happening. So actually, I was recently in New York. I don't really go to the subway a lot anymore.
Yeah.
But I was very recently in New York, and I was on the subway, and I see people playing guitar, and I see people singing, and I think those were my coworkers at some point. We all worked here at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, how incredible it is that I was working with these people 7 years ago, and I needed to respect their shift when they took the train first.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing software engineering here at like this big company, and like doing all these projects at Stevens. It's crazy. It's really, you feel like everything that you've done was worth.
Amazing. No, that's beautiful to hear. And just one thing that you guys see is that first thing out of the box. I think that's super important when it comes to applying to anything, or even trying to get clients or anything in terms of business education. Thinking out of the box is crucial when it comes to making yourself stand out, and also increasing your chances of getting a position, of acquiring a client, and also being close and building those personal relationships with mentors, with professors, are things that not many people tell you, but are crucial. There's many students that they know the professor for 3-4 years, and they have never spoken with them after school or office hours. And it is something that it is clear in your story that you utilize a lot, first for the cookie scholarship, and then second for Google.
Yes, absolutely. Meeting people, being surrounded by those people who know how to help you, and thinking outside of the box, and realizing the importance of being unique are very important takeaways that I think will benefit everybody.
Yeah. So a question that most people are probably asking is in terms of your rap career. Now that you're working at Google, are you still doing the rap? What's kind of your future goals with first freestyling and then second with your career and work?
Yeah, so freestyle rap is part of my identity. I do this since I'm 14, 15, and I'll never let it go. That will always be a part of me, and I don't do it as much as I want to because I'm handling job and school, so it's a big responsibility right now. But as soon as I become more stable, I'll be there more. So right now I do it when I have the chance, when I have the time, mostly on the weekends, mostly when there's Red Bull events. So I was in Miami last year, well you were there too. So when Red Bull calls, I'm there.
Okay.
But I can't spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
But as soon as I get the chance, I will. I'll never let it go, and it's always gonna be like my part-time job.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, Eduardo. So, what holds the future for you? What do you see yourself doing in 5 years?
That's a great question. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I am a big believer on being bad at something that I'll be good at some point.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm trying to immerse more myself in AI and machine learning and data science. So obviously, right now, my short term goal is to finish school, which is only a year away from here. And then I like to go more and do industry, obviously do freestyle at the same time, but be in the industry for 3 years, discover more this field of AI, which is currently what interests me, and then 3 4 years when I feel like I found what I want to do like more, because when CS is very unpredictable. 2 years ago, I thought I wanted to be a cybersecurity analyst, and then 1 year ago I thought I wanted to be a software engineer, and then turns out, wow, AI is cool. So it's you know constantly emerging new technologies. So this is how this field works, and right now I'm driven by AI. If in 4 years I feel like I want to stay here, then I'm gonna go to graduate school and keep doing the same thing, keep starting a new process, which I know at this point I'm not the best, but at some point I'll use this to keep growing. And I see myself in 5 years having a master's degree, probably having a side position and as a professor, just because I want to be close to students and give them all these tips and tricks that will give into the audience, and possibly doing more freestyle if life allows.
Amazing, amazing. Well, now it's kind of the section of the podcast where we give advice to the young people looking at us or to other professionals who are interested in learning, bettering themselves as a person, as a professional, as a business owner. So first, let's start with what's your input when it comes to the Latino community, as we both come from the same community, especially the immigrant one.
Yes, so that's a very good question. So my friend was here. He visited me recently. My friend from Salvador was here, and I noticed how he underestimated himself whenever we went somewhere just because he was Latino before even trying, and he didn't believe that he had the same opportunities just because he was Latino. And I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, I understand that you think like that because I used to think like that. But we both agree that being from an underrepresented minority is actually an advantage in the U.S. And being Latino for me means, creating all these opportunities for people who look forward to being like us.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people can make it this far, and it's something I see at my school. There's not a lot of diversity in terms of Latinos. I saw it at my community college. I see that in higher positions. I even see it at Google. All the people I met, not a lot of them are Latinos. So I see this, that all that is happening to me and to you, as setting up placing the path for new generations who want to reach this point because they're out there. They just don't know how to do it.
Exactly, and we are first generation. We're first gen. We are the first ones in our families to go get a college education. We are the first ones to take that professional career. And something that I do see is that many people from my own community, from my own neighborhood, they have this victim mentality that they think that, oh, because I'm Latino, I don't have opportunities. It's totally the contrary. If you're a Latino, there's so many resources for you. If you just go on Google and search Latino scholarships for XYZ, there's gonna appear 20 pages of opportunities that you can apply for. So I think it just is an excuse. And I think also as a community, we should, start reaching to these opportunities and take advantage of the privilege that it is to be a Latino or a first gen in the United States.
Absolutely. As long as you search for the right resources, all the opportunities will open up. That's my mentality in there. And obviously, as long as you talk to the right people as well.
Exactly. Like I think that probably was the best thing that happened to me and to you. The reasons why we were able to obtain these scholarships, obtain these opportunities, is because of our background.
Yeah, exactly.
So
one interesting thing that also we didn't mention, and I wanted to bring up about the freestyle thing is, well, so if you guys know, he's also a freestyle rapper. So everything started on Francesco's journey by a freestyle that he did at a program when he was like 8. So it's very important to show your identity. So he was showing his identity as a Latino, and that's what opened the opportunities. So that it's not a disadvantage to be Latino or from other minority or from being an immigrant. It's actually something that will open the doors.
Yeah, and I think it also gives you that drive. Like being an immigrant gives you a drive that is different than most people.
Exactly.
It is something that I don't know. You probably know it's something deep inside that drives you to take that extra step because you know the opportunities that there is back home.
Yeah.
So you take advantage of all of it. And yeah, I think for me it's like a superpower. Being Latino, being immigrant. So sometimes I do see, especially your story, and I think you draw a lot of power from who you were before in the past, and that gives you the confidence for you to be able to achieve so much stuff.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, okay, I did this, I can do that. And now I did those 2 things, I can do a third. And that's how you go. And at some point it becomes, like you said, like a superpower. It's something that I can do, it's achievable. Like it's just a matter of taking the first step.
Yeah, exactly. Because always in the back of my mind, when I'm like feeling down, I think about that time that we used to be freestyling when I was 14 and when you were 17, 18 in the train. And I'm like, wow, like I was there, So when I go to let's say a presentation, or I go to meet a client or a networking event, I know that most of the people didn't go through what we went through, the struggle.
Yeah.
So that gives me the confidence. I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I already went through the hard times. It should be easy.
Yes, absolutely. I relate myself to that, and even I compare myself to experiences back home, and I survived. So I'm like, okay, if I did that, I can do this.
Exactly. So I know you were a freestyler, and then you went very deep into education. So I know you have a very interesting, let's say, opinion about the GPA. So I would love for you to share with the people here.
Yes, it's a very, very interesting opinion. So I believe a 4.0 GPA is not essential and it's not the most important thing in college and in life. Because knowing like passing your classes and having a good GPA, yes, it is important and it is, it makes the difference, but it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna be successful. The most important thing is that you balance yourself so that you can get everything. So good grades are important, but they're not the most important.
Yeah.
They're priority, but they shouldn't be the only thing you're doing. So I feel like only doing classes because you're gonna get a 4.0 is not better than balancing your classes and knowing that you'll probably get a 3.7, but you're gonna develop one project, or that you're gonna participate in this or the other extracurricular. I feel like that's more important than having a 4.0 or high GPA.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm in the same boat. I think doing, like you said, like other activities, working hard. And the problem I see today is that most people are lazy. They don't take action. They are not as fast. There's no speed within what they do. Uh, is what makes them be in the position that they are. So if you people start, taking action, executing fast, and actually going and doing what they say they will do, it makes your life totally different.
Yes, absolutely. So very important to have to be a balanced student and to not worry a lot about the grades. They're important and they're there, and you have to pass the classes, but it will not be the end of the world.
Exactly, exactly. And well, I think one thing that I think probably people are asking is how did you met Kelly?
Yeah, very very good question. So he has always supported the urban movements in El Salvador. You know, the hip hop culture in El Salvador. He has always done massive events for freestyle, for breakdance, for skateboarding. So he has always been on top of the hip hop culture and the underrepresented culture in El Salvador. So he always advocated for us. Honestly, I think he has always showed he always showed that he cared about art. And when I was developing and when I was becoming more popular in this freestyle world in 2019, I had the opportunity to perform in the United Nations in the Salvadorian event. So he was there, and we met. We had a small conversation, and I believe that was also crucial. That was very important in my life, and it showed me how far you can get. It showed me the outcome of discipline.
Yeah.
Because you go from asking a random guy on the train what's their name to just tell them something, you know, funny so that you can get a tip, to freestyling with the ambassador and with the president of your country and the United Nations.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And just to get a bit heated, what is your opinion about Bukele and what he's doing in your home country?
Yeah, so Nayib is doing well, you can see the statistics, you can see the numbers, and I feel like numbers don't lie. I feel like statistics are real, and they can be, refute. You can't really deny statistics.
Exactly.
So right now we are one of the best, one of the safest countries in Latin America. When I say best, I mean in terms of safety. And we've organized. We've had a lot of events. We hosted Miss Universe last year. We had the Latin American Olympic Games in El Salvador. We had a special guest. We also did there's this freestyle competition which is called FMS, which stands for Freestyle Master Series, which is the number one professional competition in the world after Red Bull, and we organized one of their main events. So we've been having different markets. We have this Miss Universe market, we have this sports market, we have this hip hop market, and like that, he's doing a lot of stuff. We had the surf World Cup, and so I feel like he's really investing in the culture of our country, and he's obviously doing a great job in terms of this safety and prevention of violence. I feel like he has done a lot of respectable things.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm also a Bukele supporter. I love Bukele. I love his mission. Yeah, and I also love how close he is with God. I think that's one of the things that I also want to touch before we end the podcast. Is about your faith, because I know that's something that we have talked about. After I got into my faith more. Eduardo was somebody that we talk a lot with, so I know that's probably the most important part of you. So I would love you to also share that. I think it's always great to share your faith.
Yeah, and so that ties with what I've been saying throughout the podcast about always keeping in mind your identity and always, having being clear about who you are. And so I was born and raised Christian, and not only that I was born and raised, but I also believe in that, because there's also things that people that are born into but they don't like.
Yeah.
So my faith is something that I believe. I have a personal relationship with God, and I felt like when I came here, that was probably gonna be something that put me in a disadvantage, because this is such a diverse country with different types of perspectives. So I was afraid. I was a little bit afraid of sharing this, but with the time, I just realized and discovered the importance of believing in what you believe and having your faith there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one thing that has always helped. So one thing that I always share with people is that when I have a big project, like scholarship, like Red Bull, like Google, I always pray for it. And that's like step one. Let me go and pray.
Yeah.
And I pray every day, and it happens. So, well, listen, it works for me, and so I'm gonna keep praying. I know if I put something into prayer, it'll happen.
Exactly. And I think, all the blessings come from the one upstairs. And I think I have seen, how your faith has made you so strong, especially in your entire journey. And it's something that you have shared with me. And as the time and our relationship grew, I also got into my faith, and I love speaking about it with you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing talking about that with you. We share that, and I think it comes down to all the different types of aspects of my identity and that you guys possibly have. I was able to also connect my faith to the freestyle and to the academics and to the scholarships. So, like I was saying in the beginning, it's very important to connect all the dots and make your personality, make yourself, like make yourself as a whole, and have that. So all those little things will contribute towards your success.
Yeah. So last question, Eduardo, before we leave the podcast, with our first guest, is that if there's another Eduardo who just got he's 17, he just immigrated from El Salvador to the United States, what would be your advice to him?
It'll be, don't take things too personal because people don't mean it. Now, I think I was very emotional back then. Sometimes I overcomplicated a lot of things. So I would always emphasize the importance of keeping your emotions out of certain scenarios. And that's very important in the workplace, in school, in arts, everywhere where I've been. It's very important to keep your emotions stable and balanced. So I would have told him, don't be too emotional and just believe in yourself.
Well, Eduardo, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you to all the great things I'm gonna be doing in the future.
It was so great talking to you again, my friend. Great things to hear. And I love how you've evolved and all this setup and all this that you're doing. It's really awesome, man. I look forward to coming back some point.
Perfect. And guys, like I said, it is bi-weekly, so in 2 weeks it will be the third episode with our second guest. So be ready, guys.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys watch this, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Like and subscribe.
Casi loco, millonario, por favor. Loco, vuelve loco, hoy el chesco lo hago tan perfecto porque yo soy el maestro. Así que mira cómo no vengo a matarte, si vengo a expresarte, loco, esta arte.
Esta arte, cumplimos las predicciones, algunos de nosotros hicieron malas expresiones, nosotros seguimos nuestras vocaciones y pasamos de rapear en el 7 a facturar 7 millones. Ya vieron cómo estas son las reproducciones, estamos en el podcast hablando de expresiones. Estamos dando consejos a nuevas generaciones de cómo vivir la vida y cómo se las pone.
Sí, porque yo tomé malas decisiones, loco, me cansé, tomé yo malas acciones. Pero antes, loco, que mi mente, loco, me traicione, yo recuerdo que soy yo el jefe como Al Capone. Y aunque una AK a mí la vida a mí me pone, yo le digo que soy noble, aunque yo nací pobre. Puse mi vida, loco, mira, en un cobre y casi, loco, yo me mato, pero no mato mis sobres.
No mato mis sobres, eso es lo que se alborota y se rima, pero no es rima barata. Soy como el Doctor Manhattan, soy como la mafia italiana, los que controlan Manhattan. Pisa y la mafia que se viene a expresar. La verdad que el Conchesco acabamos de aquí hablar, pero nunca hay una manera para rapear y expresar esta manera que yo tengo de realizar.
Exacto, loco, está en mi conciencia. Loco, ese mundo, el mundo de la delincuencia. Todavía pienso loco y pienso en mi esencia. Pienso loco en escaparme y utilizar mi inteligencia para algo bueno, para algo bueno. Mucho tiempo que a rapear, loco, no entreno, pero cuando lo hago siempre tiro mi veneno, porque yo si rapper está tranquilo siempre está muy pleno.
Pero lo que se practica y no se suicida, recuerda que lo se practica nunca se olvida. Es como andar en bicicleta, así es como se interpreta esta forma de tirar letras, porque aunque se practique no va a olvidarse. Apto para dominicanos, también para parces, para todos los del globo latino, apto para americanos, californianos y neoyorquinos.
Exacto, porque mira como yo me vuelvo loco. Estamos con el Omar, el emo roco. Así que mira como mira ya no aguanta. Después de esto, loco, vacación en Casa Blanca. Y voy a la Casa Blanca con el presidente. Estate atente que hoy se siente muy diferente. Lo hago excelente, loco, estoy yo mal de la mente. Mato a uno, mato a otro, que ya venga el siguiente.
Que ya venga el siguiente, que bueno ponen el internet para que se vea bien, para que se vea al 100. Contrólala con la mente como el profesor Javier. Mencionaste a Omar, pero te olvidaste de Linet. ¿Qué onda, Linet?